Good afternoon, everybody. I make it midday, so time to start the webinar. Just before we kick off, could anyone who's attending please just confirm in the chat box on the right-hand side whether or not you can hear me? I don't want to carry on talking if I'm talking to myself. So if you could just pose yes, you can hear me in the chat box on the right, that would be great, and then I can start on with the presentation. Thank you. Not seeing any comments yet, just so if you could confirm that you could hear me. It just needs to be a simple yes or a thumbs up or any kind of symbol to let me know that you can hear my voice. That would be fantastic. Once I've got that from somebody, we can carry on. So I'll just wait for a second, wait and see if anybody can comment in the chat box for me, please. Fantastic. That's great. Thank you very much to that person who has confirmed. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gemma Callow. I am the Communications Manager for the Clean Air Zone, leading on stakeholder engagement. I'm joined today by my colleague Peter Edwards, who is the Principal Clean Air Zone Officer, and also Steve Genner from Sustrans, who's the project officer there. He's going to talk a little bit about the air quality champions. So before we begin, just to let you all know that we are all working from home, so apologies if you hear any background noise involving children or pets. It's the world we live in at the moment, I'm afraid. And just to let you know, this is being recorded, and we will send you a link to the recording afterwards so you can share with family, friends, group members, etc. So with that in mind, I will start the presentation now. So bear with me just a second. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this now. Okay. So as mentioned, my name is Gemma Callow. The reason that we're introducing the Clean Air Zone in Birmingham is because air pollution has been declared a national health emergency, and in Birmingham alone it's contributing to up to 900 deaths every year through conditions such as heart disease, lung disease, cancer, etc. I won't go through all the figures on the screen, you can see them there for yourselves. But it's having a seriously detrimental impact on everybody's health, particularly the vulnerable and deprived who live closer to the roads or have poorer health, and children as well, who are closer to the ground and therefore inhale 3 times as much air pollution than we do as adults, purely because they are closer to those exhaust fumes that are coming out. So these are the reasons why the zone is being introduced. It is having a serious impact on health, and we need to step in and do something, and I've been instructed to do so by the government. So in Birmingham, prior to COVID, we undertook some research that showed that 50% of journeys into the city centre every day were undertaken by car. Of those journeys, 250,000 of them every day were for less than 1 mile. So what the Clean Air Zone is looking to do is deter those high polluting vehicles from coming into the city centre, but also as a secondary approach, get people who are taking those small car journeys to consider alternative forms of transport, walking, cycling, public transport, etc. So Clean Air Zones are being introduced across the country. The first one outside of London will be introduced in Bath on Monday next week. In Birmingham, our Clean Air Zone will go live on the 1st of June this year, having been delayed twice from January last year and summer last year. We are introducing a Category D Clean Air Zone in Birmingham. Each local authority sets the boundaries and the category. Category D means that we will be charging all vehicles that don't meet the emission standards, including private cars. So that's the situation for Birmingham. So it will be all non-compliant buses, trucks, vans, cars and taxis that will be subject to the charge if they don't meet the emission standard. It's important to stress that a clean air zone is not the same as a congestion charge. So a congestion charge will charge every vehicle to drive through a specific area. A clean air zone will only charge the most high polluting, which we expect to be about 1 in 4 vehicles. So the clean air zone you can see on screen is the blue area that's everywhere within the A4540 Middleway, but not the Middleway itself. So you can drive around the Middleway in a non-compliant vehicle and not be subject to any charges. If you're in a non-compliant vehicle, and I stress it's non-compliant, and you drive in, then we have ANPR cameras that will pick you up. And from the 1st of June, you'll be subject to charges that are £8 a day for cars, taxis and small vans, and £50 a day for HGVs, coaches and buses. A day is midnight to midnight, not 24 hours from when you enter the zone. But during that midnight to midnight time frame, you can enter and leave as many times as you want for a single charge. However, if you drive in at say 10 PM and leave at 2 AM, crossing that midnight threshold, you will then be subject to 2 charges. If you're in a compliant vehicle, you don't need to take any action. But if you are in a non-compliant vehicle, you will need to make payment, and that needs to be made 6 days in advance of the day of your visit, the day of your visit, or 6 days after. So you have a 13-day payment window in total, and you can pay using the government's payment system, which will be available online and over the phone. If you don't pay within the allocated time frame, you'll be sent a fixed penalty notice of £120, reduced to £60 if paid within 14 days. It's important to stress we are installing about 300 signs on the boundary and approach to the zone, but you won't receive a text or a letter to say that you've entered and that you need to make payment. The onus is on you as a driver to make sure that you know that you've entered and need to make payment within that time frame. And that's why we're hosting webinars such as this, to make sure people are aware. So the most important question that you're going to want to know the answer to is, will I be charged? Is my vehicle compliant? So on the screen are the vehicles that meet the emission standard, but the easiest thing to do is to go onto the Brumbury's website, click on the link to the government vehicle checker, where you can input your registration details, and it will tell you whether or not you'll be subject to the charge. The emission standards that you need to meet are Euro 4 standard or petrol for better, which is most vehicles produced after 2006. A Euro 6 diesel standard or better, which is most vehicles manufactured from September 2015 onwards. Gas Euro 6, fully electric, fully hydrogen fuel cell, or a hybrid electric meeting those Euro 4 petrol, Euro 6 diesel standards. Those timeframes on screen, 2006 and 2015, are indicative. They are not confirmation. It is based on the emission standards, and the best thing to do is to go and use that government vehicle checker, like I say. It's important to stress that the Clean Air Zone is not intended to be a money-making scheme for the council. If we make no money from this zone, then we've succeeded, because that means there are no high polluting vehicles driving through the centre, and therefore air pollution levels will have improved, and that is the objective of the zone. However, we do know that particularly in the early days, we will make some money from this project, and we are bound that we have to reinvest that money in transport related projects and policies. It cannot go into the council's general budget and fund things like the floozy and jacuzzi repairs or your bin collections. It has to support transport related projects. So some of the projects that have been identified so far are implementing controlled parking zones around the boundary of the zone to protect residents, to stop people parking their cars on the outside and then walking in, causing problems for those who live in the area. Funding for a hydrogen bus pilot scheme. City centre pedestrianisation works to make walking safer and easier and more appealing to do so. And active and sustainable travel improvements. So things such as increased cycle lanes, again, making it safer and more appealing to adopt those alternative forms of transport. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Peter. He will talk you through some of the support that's available for the zone.
Thank you, Gemma. Yeah, my name's Peter Edwards, Principal Clean Air Zone Officer within the Clean Air Zone team, with overall responsibility for delivering the exemptions package within the Clean Air Zone support. So it's important to begin with a bit of context of where these exemptions have come from. So in 2018, we conducted a consultation. That consultation was not shall we do a clean air zone? We're mandated by government to do a clean air zone. It's the right thing to do. It's a public health emergency, but more to identify and ascertain which groups of people were most vulnerable to the impacts of a clean air zone, and then how should they be supported. And there was I think it was nearly 12,000 responses to that consultation. The most popular is not the correct word. The most responded to consultation that the Birmingham City Council has ever done. And this is what we've based these exemptions and financial support packages on, that I will touch on in a moment. So you can see them on screen. First of all, is a 2-year exemption for residents within the clean air zone for people that drive non-compliant vehicles. And then we have 1-year exemptions for people that work within the clean air zone and earn less than £30,000 a year. Businesses that are based within the clean air zone that have a fleet, and some of that fleet may be non-compliant, can also apply for a 1-year exemption. And then we have visitors to the Children's Hospital and 2 medical centres, Bathrow and Badger, which offer emergency or out of hours services within the clean air zone. The other ones that I've talked about, you can apply online for. You can apply online now. The hospital visitors and patients will be administered in a slightly different way, whereby you will be given a voucher code that you then credit online. The other ones you can apply online now. It's a very simple kind of 2-step process. You check your vehicle's compliance, check that you're eligible, read our terms and conditions, and then create an account. Creating a residence account, for example, and the residence account is the simplest one. You simply then need to answer a few questions and prove to us that you are a resident in the clean air zone and the registered keeper of a non-compliant vehicle. Similarly with the worker one, we just need to see that you do in fact earn less than £30,000 a year, and you need to be able to prove that you do work in the zone. So that's all spelt out on the website. So if you're looking at that and think, well, that's me, then I would encourage you to apply online as soon as possible. The applications are open. My team is processing them as we speak. So please go online. It's front and centre of the homepage, and share this information with friends and family who may also be eligible. Gemma, next slide, please. So those ones on the previous page are kind of what we call local exemptions, and they're the ones that we've determined off the back of our consultation. What you can see on screen now here are what are known as kind of national exemptions that these people will be exempt from all clean air zones across the country as they're implemented. So we have London that has their ultra low emission zone. Bath is coming online on Monday, and then other cities, Bristol, Greater Manchester, etc., are likely to come on board later this year or into next year. So it's important, first of all, to note that if you have a blue badge, that does not give you an exemption from clean air zone charging. However, if your vehicle has a disabled passenger tax classification, and this is noted on your V5, then that gives you an automatic exemption from all clean air zone charges across the country. So there'll be no action to take. That passenger tax is determined by whether or not you're in receipt of certain disability benefits. So if you think that might be you or someone in your family, please tell them to check their V5 logbook. It should be noted on there. And if it isn't, but they're in receipt of those benefits, then they can apply to the DVLA to have that passenger tax class for their vehicle. Motorcycles are exempt from clean air zone charging. Showman's vehicles, so that's vehicles that are used for fun fairs and the like. Historic vehicles, so vehicles over 40 years old, that is noted on their V5. That again is an automatic exemption. Specialist vehicles, so this is emergency services vehicles, cranes, diggers, gritters, that sort of thing. They will all have an exemption. And then finally, community and school transport, so that's your ring and ride services, not-for-profit transport. They can also have an exemption. These ones on screen are all permanent or all year exemptions, whereas the ones on the previous screen are temporary and need to be applied for. Next one, please, Gemma. Okay, so the exemptions are there to designed to give people what I describe as a bit of breathing space. and to decide what they're going to do moving forward. Are they going to upgrade their vehicle? Are they going to change to another form of transport? But they are temporary. What we've then got from central government is this £35 million package for grant funding. So for people that work in the Clean Air Zone, we will be launching in the coming months a scrappage scheme, and that scrappage scheme will give you the opportunity to apply to scrap your non-compliant vehicle via a scrappage partner that the Birmingham City Council has recently appointed. And then you will have two options of what you then do. You can either use you will then either be given a credit of £2,000 off the price of a new compliant vehicle. That's not a brand new vehicle. You don't have to have a brand new vehicle. You don't have to have a brand new electric vehicle. You just need to have a compliant vehicle. Or you can take your £2,000 and it will be put on as a mobility credit on a Swift card, and that will be administered by Transport for West Midlands. So taking that older polluting vehicle off the road and either replacing it with a cleaner one or altogether and getting people onto public transport. So that scheme will be for people that work in the zone and will be launching in the coming months. We're making good progress with that and hoping to make a major announcement on that scheme in the coming weeks. So if you're not already, please sign up for our newsletter. I'm sure Gemma will include information about that after the call when we send a kind of follow-up email. And big announcements like that will be communicated via that newsletter. There's also £10 million pot to support small and medium enterprises in the West Midlands with upgrades to HGVs and coaches, and £15 million pot to support Birmingham licensed hackney carriage and private hire drivers. And both of those two latter schemes are already open to application. So if you know anyone who might fit into those categories, again, please tell them to go to the Brumbraid's website and to see if they might be eligible for some support to upgrade their vehicles. Next one, please, Gemma. So we've talked about the financial incentives and the exemptions. I think it's also important to talk about what else is going on across the city to support a transition to a cleaner, greener city. This isn't just about air quality. This is about trying to reduce our over-reliance on single occupancy private motor vehicles in this city. Too many journeys, as Gemma has already touched upon, are less than 1 mile, unnecessary car journeys, and Birmingham City Council has put in place a transport plan to help transition people away from using private motor vehicles and them dominating our city and all the ill effects that leads to with congestion, air pollution, obesity and all those negative impacts that we saw on the first slide from Gemma. So within this transport plan, which is available to look at online, there are 4 main kind of visions or big moves. And the first one is to reallocate road space, and to do that by taking away space from private motor vehicles and to allocate it to people who are walking, cycling or using public transport. So this could be in using bus gates, bus priority, where only buses can pass through, cycle lanes. Some of this stuff has already been implemented across the city at the moment and is open for comment and consultation at the moment on the Birmingham City Council Commonplace platform. So if you've seen these, if they're in your local area, if you agree with them, you don't agree with them, please go and make your comments heard on the Commonplace platform. We can put the link in the chat, or we can put it in the follow-up emails following the call. The next one is to kind of transform the city centre, and it's again to make the city centre a more attractive place to walk, cycle, or to use public transport. So that's restricting car movements, allowing bus movements. So there's a consultation at the moment for cross-city buses. Cross-city buses at the moment aren't really feasible because of the congestion caused by private motor vehicles in the city. As somebody who previous to COVID used to cycle to work, the city centre is quite difficult to cycle across and not very pleasant to cycle across. So trying to make the city centre better for people walking and cycling and more accessible by public transport. The next one is to prioritise active travel in local neighbourhoods. So we're not just focused on the city centre, the area covered by the Clean Air Zone. We know that people live and travel in their local areas a lot, and we have a lot of congestion in those local areas. So this is through the introduction of things like low traffic neighbourhoods, where we've seen schemes implemented in Kings Heath, measures put in Bourneville, Lozells, Castle Vale, where we're restricting the movement of cars on through roads, cycle lanes again, that sort of thing. So again, I hate to keep harping on the message, but just to really make it more attractive and more pleasant for people walking, cycling, using public transport, and incentivising it. And finally, to manage demand using parking as a demand management tool. So removing all free on-street council parking within the Clean Air Zone, implementing controlled parking zones to make it less attractive to people drive their car into the city centre, into the Clean Air Zone. So all of these measures are designed to complement the Clean Air Zone. It's not the Clean Air Zone sitting on its own. All of these measures are trying to make Birmingham a cleaner, greener, and nicer place to travel, but to live as well. So next slide, please. And the next slide kind of sums that up again, really, in terms of just putting this in the context of a climate emergency. Birmingham is committed to be zero carbon by 2030. But it's not solely the responsibility of Birmingham City Council to do this. We all have a role to play, whether that's individual citizens, communities. This webinar is obviously focused on places of worship and community groups, so absolutely a huge role to play in reaching out into the community and engaging people on this front. And we need to act. We can't wait. So the Clean Air Zone has already been delayed by 18 months thanks to COVID and other delays from the government side. We won't be delaying again. It will be going ahead on the 1st of June. And Birmingham City Council has often been kind of accused of being left behind when it comes to infrastructure, cycling, that sort of thing. But over the last year, you will have seen pop-up cycle lanes, you will have seen bus priority. It's happening, and it's happening quicker, and there's a long-term plan to keep on implementing it, so we're not going to stand still. A couple of the kind of flagship things at the bottom there. We have signed a contract as part of the Clean Air Zone funding to install, I think it's 300 plus electric vehicle charging points across the city. 20 hydrogen buses in collaboration with National Express will be hitting Birmingham's roads, I think, in 2022, ready for the Commonwealth Games. And finally, purchase and lease of electric hackney carriages, because we know that they're very expensive and difficult for drivers, especially who are towards the end of their careers, to invest in. So all of these measures designed to support the key groups in Birmingham to travel in a cleaner and greener way. So that's the final slide from myself. We're not going to take questions just yet. I think Gemma's going to switch it over, and we're going to have a presentation from Steve, who works at Sustrans, but I'll leave him to introduce himself, and I'll put myself on mute. Thank you very much. We'll do questions at the end.
Hello, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Gemma. I don't know if the slides are ready yet. Oh, super. Yeah, thank you, Peter and Gemma, for a beautiful explanation, really, of what the council is doing to combat the issues of over-reliance on motorised transport, and the vision for the city as a cleaner, more enjoyable place to live in and visit. Sustrans, I work for Sustrans, and we are working with alongside the council in a particular aspect of this. You may not know who Sustrans are, so a quick précis of that. We've been an organisation which is a charitable organisation, not for profit, and it's been going for 50 years, primarily as a guardian of the cycle network in the UK, so the current 16,000 miles of cycle lanes and cycle routes around the UK, but also for the last few years been working closely with schools, workplaces, councils, central government to encourage active travel as a viable mode of transport, particularly in urban areas for shorter trips. And in this, we are currently working very closely with a lot of local authorities to try and look at how to combat major air pollution, which, as Gemma and Peter have said, is obviously a major blight on the health of people living in urban environments. Next slide, please, Gemma. Thank you. So, what are we doing? Our role, you've heard particularly from Peter, where he mentioned that already there are a lot of initiatives in place and the reasons behind that. But there is a missing link, really. I think a lot of people don't quite fully understand the reasoning behind it in terms of the air pollution. What is air pollution? What it does to us, where it comes from. So our role really is to educate people, to help them to better understand the reasoning behind these initiatives that the council are coming up with. And a way of doing that, we'll talk about the way that we do that, but it is to allow people to get a better understanding of why the measures are being taken. That's our role in this. I'm very proud to do that. And questions like what is air pollution, where it comes from and what it does to us, they are at the forefront of what we try to get across to people. Thank you, Gemma. So, how do we do this? What do we offer? Well, first of all, everything we do is free. Originally, we were going to go out and meet people face to face, which was the best way, through various events around the city. Obviously, the pandemic put a temporary halt on that, so we've relied on online resources. So currently we're offering, similar to this in a way, online webinar tutorials, which are very informal, last about an hour. They've been very popular. Groups normally between 5 and 15 is a really good number, and they usually specific to a community. So it may well be a faith group, or it could be any type of community group, where we introduce and explain the problems about air pollution and where it comes from. We also provide family resources now for particularly child-based. So a child can, we show them how to compile and make their own air quality monitor, which they can then use in their own environment, usually in their own street. And it's a lot of fun, and it's a hands-on thing where they can actually see the effects on their air quality monitor of any pollution in that street, and that's been quite popular. We also do air quality street surveys, where we actually take a proper, fully functioning electronic air quality monitor, and we do lead walks, which are going to be more and more popular now that we are coming out a little bit of lockdown in the coming weeks. So yeah, again, a small group will be walking around the streets with air quality monitoring in the community that you live in, and just to check on what the levels of pollution are in that area. Another thing we do at the moment is online surveys. These are quite important, really. They're a two-way street, really. We would like information about how people travel to and from inner city Birmingham, and the reasons behind those decisions they take, and in the mode of transport they use. And also it gives people a voice. So you can you can have free type comments. You can comment about anything to do with air pollution in the city, or the initiatives that the council are coming up with. And because we see it as such an important thing to go down, we're offering a £400 bike as a prize to some lucky recipient. And the last thing we're doing currently, the major thing, is we're doing a number of myth-buster videos on our social media. They're a lot of fun, where myths that people, I'll give an example. People believe that if you're driving in a car, you're far less exposed to air pollution than you would be if you're on a bicycle in slow-moving traffic. And we showed a video which actually busts that myth. So it's those sort of things, and they're all available on social media. Thank you, Gemma. So how can you help us? The main thing to remember is sharing, I believe. We try to reach out to as many people as we can. Some communities we've been very fortunate to have done that, others have been a bit more difficult. the two surveys, we do one for faith groups and one for community groups. Those links are here. Don't worry about the links, by the way, they are available to you. We'll make them available to you after the webinar. We also have a blog page and resources on our Sustrans Brumbreeze website, and there's also an email for brumbreeze@sustrans.org.uk, and you can contact us on anything there, and particularly if you want to have a webinar, or you want your community to have a webinar, or you would like a lead walk around your community with an air quality monitor, or any of the family resource packs, that's the way to contact us. I said, don't worry, I'm going to make a note of all these will be made available to you. But the key, I would say, is if you could share them, the more that people know about the reasons for these initiatives, the fact that air pollution has a major negative impact on our health, I think the more that people know that, the better for everybody. Thank you, Gemma. And final, oh, there's one more, I think. That's it. And just to reiterate how you get in touch. Fundamentally, there are our social media, which is Twitter @SustransWestMids and Facebook @SustransWestMidlands, and our email again, brumbreeze@sustrans.org.uk. Any questions that you have about air pollution, about anything that you don't understand or you're worried about, you can contact us. It doesn't have to be specific to the things I've mentioned. Any questions you have, we'd be delighted to listen and talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will. If you've got any questions, if you pop them in the chat, and Peter will answer them now for you.
Hi, so I can see we've got 3 or 4 questions. First one about motorcycles. No, motorcycles are not charged, but in the Birmingham Clean Air Zone. So they have well, it's not even yeah, it's an exemption. They're exempt. It's an automatic one. You don't have to apply. It just happens. The cameras will know that because they have their vehicle classification. Minibuses are chargeable. If those minibuses are performing community not-for-profit transport and have what's known as a Section 19 or 22 permit, then they can apply for an exemption, but that is not an automatic exemption. So if it is a ring and ride service, a school bus, then they need to check if they have that status, and if they do have that status, they need to apply to us. What we're also noticing with a lot of these not-for-profit organisation ring and ride is that a lot of the vehicles have that disabled passenger tax classification that I talked about. So that is noted on the V5 on the vehicle logbook. So if they have that disabled passenger tax classification, then they have an automatic exemption. There's no action to take. If they don't, but they are Section 19 or Section 22, then they can apply via the website under a community exemption. And there is not a student-specific exemption for students going to study within the zone. There is the residence exemption, so if they live in halls in Aston or the other, then they may be, but there isn't a student-specific exemption. I think that covers everything that's come through so far. So if I just go on mute for a couple of minutes, just see if there's any others that come through. Just to reiterate kind of what we've already touched upon, we will send a recording of this webinar, we'll put it on YouTube, and a variety of links and information after the webinar. Obviously, if you think of a question following the webinar that you wish you'd asked, or anything that doesn't make sense, hopefully you can find the answer on the website. But if you can't, then you can email cleanair@birmingham.gov.uk, and obviously Steve had his own Sustrans contacts if it was specifically around that. looks like some more questions are coming through. If you want to publish those, Gemma, or shall I do it? Oh, thanks, Gemma. Are there plans to expand bus services and times as the Clean Air Zone comes into effect? Well, Birmingham City Council doesn't control or manage public transport. We are doing everything in our power to prioritise public transport and to give bus lanes bus priority. We can control that, but timetabling and service provision is done by the providers. What I will say is that we work very closely with National Express and the other providers, as you can see with the hydrogen buses, etc. But if the services are not meeting your needs, then there is a need to contact the bus company. We know with shift workers, Sunday services, that sort of thing, Birmingham City Council isn't really in a position to force their hand. We can encourage them, we can engage with them, but that's not really within our realm. A similar question. Regarding road users who have so this is Clean Air Zone workers. It's £30,000 is gross figure, or gross or net. Yes, it's your gross earnings. What it says on your payslip, what it says on your P60. Same question again about bus services on a Sunday. How is this proven through the application process? If that is about the earnings, we ask to see a P60 or a payslip. If that is what that question relates to. I think that's all of them. Scroll back up. There's several questions about bus timings. The only other thing with the bus timings on the Sunday is could the service happen slightly later? If bus services are impossible to get to the service at 9 AM, could the service start at 10 or 11 AM? Obviously, that's not for us to decide. It's just a suggestion that I've had when I've had meetings with other, well, when we could have meetings before the pandemic, that I've had discussions with some churches that I've visited, and there may be reasons that you start at that time. I'm not here to cast aspersions about that. It's just whether or not that is something that could be looked at if the public transport network isn't providing that service for that time. Okay, we had a deluge come through there, so let me just pop myself on mute again for a couple more minutes. If there are no further questions, we'll just bring the call to a close in a couple of minutes, so I'll just pop myself on mute. I've just put, Gemma's just put some contact information for National Express. I've also just put a link to some a consultation that Transport for West Midlands are running at the moment for cross-city bus services, which is something I talked about in terms of this. It's not really possible at the moment because how clogged up the city centre is, but because of the initiatives we're putting in, it may become more feasible in the future, so you can comment on that. Have you got projection? Yes, I'm not on mute. Have you got projections about additional emissions from the ring road if drivers of non-compliant cars decide to use it? Yeah, so air quality modelling was done as part of the consultation. Let me find the link. So yeah, some modelling has been done. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Sorry. So modelling has been done by kind of experts on that. The hope is, of course, that rather than just going around a ring road, people shift away from those vehicles, or they upgrade those vehicles, so any extra traffic that hits the ring road is mitigated by those being cleaner vehicles, or there are less vehicles altogether because people have shifted. So yeah, so sorry, follow that link and there's an air quality modelling report. It's quite a technical document, but yes, it has been looked at. Yeah, there's a point here about difficult. Some public transport doesn't work for everyone. Fully appreciate that, and perhaps more should or needs to be done in terms of public transport before implementation. My response to that would be kind of that this is a public health emergency. The clean air zone, 900 plus Brummies a year dying. With links to poor air quality, so building a new train line or putting a new tram line in could take years. So we already know. I live in Kings Heath, for example. We've got the Camp Hill cords that they've been talking about opening up for, I don't know, 10 years now. And we just simply cannot wait, really. This is a public health emergency. So yeah, that would be my response to that. But I absolutely agree that it will present challenges to people, elderly people or vulnerable people. But the flip side of that is that elderly people, lower income people are proven to be the people that suffer the worst from poor air quality. So there's a flip side to that as well. Can you post the online survey? Gemma's done that for you. Thanks, Gemma. Okay, well, it seems to be every time I go on mute we get a few more questions, so I'll be quiet again for a minute or two and then perhaps we'll draw the call to a close if there are no further questions. So I'll just mute myself again. Okay, well, it seems as though no further questions are coming through. So on behalf of myself, Gemma and Steve, I would just like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join the call. I hope you found the call useful. When you get all the information from Gemma or myself following the call, please share it, forward it on to friends, family, your congregations, your colleagues, your networks in general. That is the whole idea of this. We would love to come out and speak to your congregations or in your places of worship, but we simply cannot do that with the restrictions at the moment. So we're reliant on you to a certain extent. So please do share as much as possible.
New question, Pete.
Yeah, I've seen that. Is there a hope that these measures will get increased in future, banning all petrol and diesel vehicles? Well, so central government has committed to no new sales of petrol and diesel vehicles from 2030. So that is on the horizon. It wouldn't really be within the kind of realms of local government to all out ban that stuff. But yeah, we are seeing, so we use London's ultra low emission zone as kind of the flagship. They're the first people to do one of these. They've been in place for a couple of years and it covers kind of a central area of London, the congestion zone area. But what we're seeing they're going to do at the end of this year, I think it is that will be extended out as far as the North Circular. So they're extending it, the size of their clean air zone. So that could be one further measure that could be implemented. This is all, as Gemma said at the beginning, if the whole idea of the clean air zone is to clean up the air by reducing the number of journeys and improving the quality, the emissions from those necessary journeys. If it fails, then we will be fined by government because we won't have met the target they've set us, and then there will have to be go back to the drawing board and think about new measures. So there are no new measures kind of planned at the moment because we're not even live yet. But yeah, there will be ongoing kind of monitoring and evaluation of the effectiveness of the clean air zone. And if it's not working, then it will be looked at again, and we will go back to government and say this isn't working. We're not changing behaviour. People are still doing what they were doing before. They're just paying to do it. Then we need to do something else. Absolutely. Yeah, we may need to be more ambitious. I think another one, Gemma. How accurate is the government, so the vehicle checker? So the government vehicle checker is, I don't know the exact statistic, it's 99% accurate. What we are aware of are some instances where a vehicle, and this is usually Euro 6 diesel vehicles, where some vehicles that were registered before September 2015, which is the kind of the key, the main implementation date of Euro 6 classification, are being shown as non-compliant and therefore would need to pay a charge, which is obviously not ideal. So if this occurs for you or someone you know, you may have seen press media reports about this, there is a very clear route to resolution. So if you get an unexpected result on your vehicle checker, and hopefully Gemma can put the form in the chat, then on the vehicle checker there's an online contact form or a telephone number, and then you can contact the DVLA with your query, with your concern. And it may well be that you just need to have your vehicle record updated by the DVLA, or a certificate of, I can't remember the right term, of conformity of from the manufacturer, which shows that you are in fact a Euro 6 vehicle. So I can, yeah, Gemma's typing at the moment. There you go. So that's the site to check, and on the right hand side there's a contact us type thing, which is to get that resolved. But it's not affecting a large volume of people. It's doing thousands and thousands of checks a day. So yeah, I appreciate it's an inconvenience and it's not ideal if it's your vehicle, but there is a clear path to resolution. But it's important that you do get it resolved. Even if your vehicle is Euro 6, if it's telling you it's not and it's going to be charged, then the cameras, that's the same information the cameras will use and you will be charged. So it's important to contact them and get that sorted as soon as possible. Okay, Gemma's put the link to that in the chat in the Q&A. I'll give it just 30 more seconds, but otherwise thanks once again, and we'll draw the call to a close. I'll just give it a little bit, let it tick over to 12:48 on my clock. Okay, well, no further questions seem to have come through, but thanks for all of those questions. There's some really interesting ones. I hope I've answered them enough for you, and you found this session useful. So thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, we'll be in touch with the links and that sort of information and that sort of thing. So thank you very much, and see you later. Goodbye.